Hello, and welcome to the final episode of Xtreme Onechunk Iron Man, Prifddinas edition, the prequel, where I am going to take on the Grandmaster quest, Song of the Elves, with the lowest total level, no unnecessary quest completion, and avoiding all collection logs. So, I can finally start my Xtreme Onechunk series in Prifddinas as fresh as possible. In the last episode, I completed Morning's End Part 2, finishing off all quest requirements for Song of the Elves, leaving me with just 7 skills to get to level 70 before I can start Song of the Elves. And I can find out if it's even possible for me to beat this quest with these stats and gear, or if I've just wasted the last 3 months of my life. Now, Song of the Elves, the lower the better, has been done a few times before. Most notably, Rendy did it when the quest was released, and he beat the quest at level 45 combat. Now, there's no chance I'm going to beat this. There are so many things that I don't have access to, both because I'm an Iron Man, and there are a few good things locked behind quests that I have not been able to do. However, my goal is lowest total level, so hopefully I can still achieve that, but we'll see how it goes. I also want to say just how useful the Rendy video has been during this series. Also, his 10 HP Hardcore Iron Man helped me out a huge amount on completing all the previous quests. And finally, before I get into the gameplay, last episode I talked about dropping my Stale Baguette with the rest of my bank when I get to Prif. And I got so many comments telling me that I should keep it. So, unless there's an uprising in demand for me to drop it, I'll be keeping the baguette as a souvenir from the prequel, but still dropping everything else. Now, it's time to crack on with these level 70s, so I can finally start Song of the Elves. Let's start off with what I consider the big one, Herblore. One of my first major goals on this account was to set myself up in the farming guild, completing contracts and doing herb runs in the background, hoping that once I finished all the other grinds, I would be close to finishing Herblore. And I have most of those herbs here in the form of unfinished potions, waiting to get that dopamine hit from hundreds of thousands of Herblore XP an hour, even though it's taken me over a month to bank them. I'm probably not going to be that close to 70 when I've finished all of these, but now I've done all the quests, it's time to see exactly how close I am. While I mix the potions, let's have a quick look at where I got the seeds from, and what potions I'm making with the herbs. I got a total of 68 seeds from Master Farmers, 348 from Implings, and 1095 from farming contracts. Master Farmers were never going to be a great source of seeds, they were just my best way to train thieving from 38 to 50. Implings were much better than expected. All of the seeds they drop give pretty decent Herblore XP, and the secondaries are really easy to collect. But I really hated searching for nature Implings in Piro. It requires loads of world hopping and using an alt, so I'm very glad that farming contracts ended up being the best source of seeds. Although almost half of the seeds from farming contracts were Guam, Taramin and Marantil, which are mostly not worth planting. I think I struck a good balance of hunting nature implings and logging in every hour for farming contracts. It could have been a lot quicker with more imps, and it could have been a lot chiller and slower with more farming contracts. But the main thing you need to do on accounts like this is not burn out, and I did this before I knew so many of you would watch, which really does help for motivation to do some of the longer grinds I'm going to have to do when I get to Prif. With the seeds sorted, I want to talk about the different herbs and what I'm going to make with them. Most of the time, I am just going to make the only thing I can with each herb, as alternatives often require quests or are locked behind combat. So, for Guams I'm going to make attack potions. I didn't really do anything with Marantils because picking up Swamp Tar or catching imps for unicorn horns took way too long. Taramin became strength potions, although they only got what was left over from making super strength potions. Harlander became energy potions, and I used so many of these, as they were my best way to restore run energy. Ranar became prayer potions, Irit's, Quam, Cadentines became super attack, strength and defense, and Snapdragons became super restores. Which leaves me with the potions that I had to make with Avantoe and Toadflax, and it makes me a little sick to think about it. Avantoe became fishing potions, and Toadflax became agility potions. If you were to make these on a main, you would lose around 4000 GP per potion. But the option was between making these or just dropping them. So in the end, I made around 500 agility potions and 700 fishing potions. So I only set fire to around 5 mil worth of herbs. With these potions, I am finishing up what I have banked. And it just about got me to 67 Herblore, which is not too bad. That's 75% of the way to level 70. But I am now completely out of usable herbs in the bank, so I'm going to continue with the herb runs while I do my other grinds, but I also want to try out some more active methods to see if I can speed things up and not just have to wait for all of the plants to grow. My first idea was to head into the Deep Wilderness dungeon and try picking up the only herb spawn in the game. But this does have a few problems. You can't easily hop to collect a full inventory, as the giants put you in combat. So my options are to hide behind these rocks to wait for combat to drop and then hop worlds, or wait out the aggression timer and then do all my hops together. At 700 XP per inventory, and each inventory taking at least 10 minutes to collect, I'm looking at banking around 4000 XP an hour, so I think I'd rather just do a few more farm runs. The next method I've seen a few snowflakes do before, which is Broody Victims. They spawn during the Taiba One-Eye cleanup minigame, and have a few mechanics that are unique to them. There are 3 types of Broody Victims, and you can only damage them in very specific ways. The white victims can be damaged with food, and give you cooking XP. The yellow ones can be damaged with Recklam's Balms and Sandfew Serums, and will give Herblore XP, but I can't actually get either of these items. And finally, the green ones can be damaged with anti-poisons, in exchange for Herblore XP. And luckily, anti-poisons and some food are sold nearby, so theoretically I can stay here for a really long time. Now, I can't actually take part in the minigame myself, as it's locked behind some quests. Luckily, when other people spawn them doing the mini quest, they usually just hop to a different world, as they're quite awkward to kill. So it's quite common to just find them around the area. I expect a larger creator could get lots of people here spawning Broody Victims and calling worlds for them. But even if I could do this, the actual problem is the cost of anti-poisons. At around 150 GP per dose, giving an average of 20 Herblore XP, I don't think I actually have that much spare money. The last method I want to test was suggested by fellow Xtreme Onechunker Agile Tom, the man behind Xtreme. And surprise surprise, he suggested a method inside of Chambers of Xeric. It's going to take a bit of time to set up, and requires me to use an ult. So I'm going to do the initial tests with just my Iron Man, and if it seems good, then I'll do the proper setup with Prifddinas. Now, I have done a few Chambers runs recently, so I have some idea of how this place works, but shout at me in the comments if I'm doing this all completely wrong. It's not like there are guides for training Herblore in Chambers, so I'm mostly making this up as I go. Step 1. Clear out the first floor of the raid so you can get to this weeds patch and rake up loads of seeds. Step 2. Kill scavengers until you have enough secondaries for all the potions you want to make. And because of how Chambers works, I can kill these with my Iron Man and pick them up on Prifddinas to avoid the combat XP. Step 3. Plant the seeds and pick the herbs. They grow almost instantly, and again, my Iron Man can plant these for Prifddinas, avoiding farming XP if I really want to. Step 4. Make vials from this tree here, and then fill them up at the geyser. Step 5. Make the potions. And then repeat this until you run out of supplies. I did this for around 15 minutes to get a rough idea of the XP, and I managed to get about 14,000 XP an hour, which isn't the worst, but I also think I'd get about 20% less on Prifddinas because the XP scales with level. This is by far the best method that I have found, but it's also not the secret Herblore minigame that I was hoping for. So I think I'll just put Herblore back on passive and work on my other grinds. The only other skill that I have been dreading is smithing. Normally, you train it with either Giant's Foundry or the Blast Furnace, or maybe use bars you get directly from bossing. But I can't do any of these things. And the core gameplay of mining ores and smithing them needs a bit of love, as it's just miserable in its current state. But I can complain about this more when I get to Prif, as I'll need to get 99 smithing. As I've said before, the main problem I have with smithing is that I can't bank enough smithing XP from mining alone to get to level 70, so I'm going to have to find some other methods. With that in mind, I have a few things to test. The first of which I did back in episode 2 to get from level 1 to 15 smithing, buying bronze bars from the Shantae Pass. And instantly, I'm annoyed with this method. They are never any bars in stock. And I just checked the wiki, and it takes 5 minutes for these to restock. So I guess this isn't really durable if there's any competition at all. Next, I want to try picking up iron bars in the wilderness. It's near a bank, but the bears make it really hard to hop, and it feels quite similar to picking up guam leaves in the deep wilderness dungeon. Both of these methods are kind of making me lose the will to live, so let's hope the next method's a good one. And this is a classic grind for Onechunk accounts, fixing struts in the Motherlode mine. And to be honest, it seems pretty good. You hop worlds, and if the struts are broken, you can just click them, and you get 1.5 times your smithing levels in smithing XP. Obviously, any method that requires you to constantly hop worlds is not going to be fun, but the rates I'm getting here are much higher than smelting iron ore and turning them into plate bodies. The wiki has XP rates for it and even a few tips and tricks, so maybe this is less of a meme than I thought it was. But it is still laughable compared to the efficient methods for smithing. And it's going to take me only about 10 hours to get to level 70, which is not bad at all from an Xtreme Onechunk's perspective. And it's really easy to do while sat in work meetings.
So, fast forward 10 hours, and here I am, getting level 70.
And because this method was so good, I even ended up with about 4,000 iron ore left in my bank, because it just wasn't worth using. With the hard skills out of the way, it's time to quickly run through what I did to get level 70 in the remaining skills. For mining, I tested out a few things that I could do to help with smithing, like mining coal or Motherlode mine, but after finding out the struts were so good, I just AFK'd shooting stars, as the gems will be useful in case I run out of money. Woodcutting was another easy one, as I no longer have any use for logs.
So, I either cut yews when I wanted to AFK, or teaks when I wanted slightly better XP.
Hunter, I spent a little bit more time at Implings, as I wanted a few wild pies from eclectic imps, as I think they'll be pretty useful in the Fragment of Seren fight, and once I got a few of them, I finished off the grind at Black Salamanders. For agility, I did make a little bit of a mistake here. I thought I could just do a couple of rooftops to get to 70. For some reason, I thought that if I didn't pick up the Marks of Grace, they wouldn't go into my collection log, but I ended up with 6. It's a bit stupid, but not the end of the world. But still, another level 70 ticked off the list. Farming needed to wait until I'd finished Herblore, but I planted a few trees so that when I was done with Herblore, I could quickly finish off farming. And here's the clip of me finally getting 70 Herblore, only 9 days after finishing Morning's End Part 2, and then in quick succession, I go and finish off the farming grind.
Meaning, I have now completed all of the requirements needed to start Saga of the Elves.
But probably not everything I will need to finish the quest. Time to have a quick look at my total stats to see how well I'm doing. Everything except for defense, magic, and prayer are at the minimum level, and I think those extra levels have been completely unavoidable for me. As I still need 1 or 2 more lamps to get 20 defense, I'm going to get to the point in the quest where the combat starts, and then we can talk about my gear setups and go over how I'm going to beat Fragment of Seren. So, let's get going. We start off this quest by making ourselves an Ardy Knight outfit, so we can free Elaine from prison and get working on overthrowing the king. He made up a fake plague to imprison everyone in West Ardy, so he can summon the Dark Lord, so he probably deserves this. We pose as a mourner in West Ardy, and we burn all their food supplies, but it's only been a week or so since I poisoned it, so it's much less evil than it seems. Then, we dress up again as a Knight of Ardy, and tell everyone in East Ardy that the king is raising taxes to fund some of his hobbies. This pushes the people into full rebellion, and it's time to kill some mourners and then storm the castle. This is not normally a difficult fight. You just help the rebellion and it's over very quickly. However, the way I'm doing it is going to make it even easier. All I have to do is wait it out. All of the named NPCs seem to have plot armor, so I can just wait for them to do it all for me. And as I'm still avoiding combat XP, this is exactly what I did. I just need to find a good safe spot to stand in and maybe offer some words of encouragement. The first battle was over in only 12 minutes. The second fight took a bit longer at 24 minutes, and the final fight was a grueling 33 minutes. The hardest part was the boredom and realizing that I had other things to do today, but at least the rebellion won, and I sure was there. The king has been overthrown, and I'm sure that West Ardy is going to be fixed up soon, and the people will have a much nicer place to live. Right? But it's not over for me yet. The evil elf Lord Ioweth kidnaps me and Elaine, and they are pissed, completely ruining their plans as they can no longer get to the Temple of Light. But before he gets to imprisoning us, the good elves, the rebels, arrive, and we finally find out that Lord Ioweth is actually trying to free Seren, the god of the elves, rather than summon the Dark Lord. The rebels are shocked that their god could still be alive, so they do the most obvious thing and send me to do some fact-finding puzzles to find out what's going on. I spent a while trying to work out how to explain this in a way that doesn't sound insane, but I failed, so here we go. I head back to Baxtorian Falls to look for information, but instead I unpetrify the statue of Baxtorian, so I take him back to the elf camp and he can give us the full backstory. A long time ago, Lord Ioweth started a military coup to take over Prifddinas. Baxtorian managed to infiltrate the city and rescue the other elven leaders, and together they turned Prifddinas back into a crystal seed. And then they all went into hiding until Lord Ioweth was gone and they could revert the city. Now I've got a few questions about this. Where is the city? Is it a tiny crystal or a giant crystal? Is it in someone's pocket somewhere? I feel like this could have been way more clear if they had shown us like some sort of crystal that we would turn back into the city. And who was actually supposed to stop Lord Ioweth? It seems like all of the leaders went and turned themselves into statues. They seem to be vastly more powerful than the regular elves, so it doesn't exactly seem like a great plan. Anyway. Baxtorian also tells us that we can make some kind of magic potion that will let us enter the crystal and go into the library to learn more about Seren. So, still a bit unsure about what it means to enter a crystal, or what crystal I'm even going to enter. I get to it, freeing some of the elven leaders, and then making the potion that can teleport us inside the crystal. And in case you're wondering why I needed to spend the last few months grinding to 70 Herblore, it's this part here. Surrounded by ancient immortal elves, and not one of them is able to mix this potion together. Can these elves do anything at all? And now it's time to decide who's going to go into this crystal and discover Seren's biggest secrets. And of course it's me. Maybe the rest of the elves are also fed up of doing light puzzles, and they can trick me into doing it. Only one of the elves seems to have a problem with this, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce their name. But they were also rude to me earlier, saying everywhere I go, I leave a trail of bodies behind me. And at first, I was going to take issue with this, as I'd practically been playing as a pacifist, but I have still killed a Temple Guardian, some wolves, a Chompy, a Unicorn, 3 Paladins, 3 Demons, a Spider, a King, an Elf, a Moss Giant, and my ult like 150 times in Soul Wars. So I'm not exactly sure pacifist is the right word for me. But the Elders don't seem to care about that one guy's totally reasonable objections, so we go and do some light puzzles. So I grab my remaining staminas, fill the rest of my inventory with energy potions,
and head off into the library. The puzzles are pretty similar to the ones in Morning's End Part 2.
but nothing attacks you, so it's a lot better, but just really long. Along the way, we learn that Seren mixed part of herself with the power from the Death Altar to try and help the elves survive without her, but it turned out evil and attacked her, so she locked it away in the Temple of Light and left it as a problem for the elves to deal with later. And to be fair to Lord Ioreth, he just thinks it's part of Seren locked up, so trying to free her does seem like a totally reasonable thing to do. But with the knowledge that it's evil Seren locked up in the Temple of Light, we go and free the rest of the elven leaders and prepare to stop Lord Ioreth once and for all. With all of the puzzles out of the way, it's time to gear up for the combat missions. That was the last lamp I needed to get 20 defense. And I now can use a Wizard's Mind Bomb to boost from 63 to 66 magic, to get into the Wizard's Guild and buy some Mystic Robes. Now I have all the items I plan to use for bossing. Let's check out that drip. And I completely forgot that you need 50 attack to wield Ivan's Staff. This sucks, because I really don't think there's a different weapon I can use. The only alternative I have is to use Wind Wave, as all other magic weapons are locked behind Slayer or quests. So if I compare my two options in a DPS calculator, Ivan's Staff is almost 50% better than Wind Wave, and the time to kill for Fragment of Seren goes down by over 3 minutes. So, unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to suck it up and get these levels. If you're worried that this will affect anything when I get to Prif, well, the grind to level 50 is less than 5% of the grind I'm going to have to do when I get to Prif, where I will need level 80 to wield a Blade of Saeldor. So although the extra levels are sad, I don't think they'll make any difference in the long term. And while I'm here defending my setup, I just want to show you the next best option for Mage Robes, which would have only needed 10 defense to wear, which is the Zerishan Robes. Again, I've put it through the DPS calculator, and wearing Mystics gives me another 30% DPS over the Zerishan Robes, which will save a whole 2 minutes in the Fragment of Seren fight. And I think the fight is going to be so close, even with Mystic Robes, so I do really think that I need them. And it's not like getting to 20 defense would really be that much of a challenge when I get to Prif. Both Ibans and Mystics are extremely powerful this fight, and there really isn't any better gear I can get access to. The only other upgrade I could get without getting too many more levels is a Broodoo Shield, but that would be the last resort. So if I can't beat it with this gear, it's probably the end of the account. And in case you were wondering if there was a better setup with melee or ranged, I loaded some mid-range gear sets into the DPS calculator, and they are both much worse than my mage setup. So it's back to Soul Wars for another 10 hours so I can get to 50 attack. I can finally equip all of my gear. And the level up message doesn't even bother to name Ivan's Staff. What a scam. And after a quick trip to Aubrey's shop for a few thousand casts of Ivan's Blast, I can get straight into the first fight. I need to retrieve some orb that Lord Ioreth has that he needs to free Fragment of Seren. The fight is nice and simple. You can safe spot the melee elf behind the ranged one and take them out one at a time. And then I collect the orb from this crate at the back. But this attack causes Lord Ioreth to retaliate and invade the rebel camp, and he has turned Aranwin against us, who was one of the leaders of the rebels, and has told Lord Ioreth about the secret entrance to the Temple of Light in the Underground Pass. Now, I can sort of see things from Lord Ioreth's point of view.
Getting back even a fragment of your god is surely a worthy goal. Well, never mind. He just admitted to killing his own mother. I guess Jagex really didn't want any shades of grey in this quest. They leave the rebel base in ruins, take the orb, and head off to the underground pass to summon Seren, and left me to fight the first boss of the quest, Aranwin. The wiki suggests melee for this fight, but my melee gear is terrible, so I just soldier through with mage. Even though Aranwin has 102 mage level and 260 mage defense, it's still my best damage. And this fight is pretty simple. He has 3 attacks. A green arrow, where you pray ranged and negate all the damage. A purple arrow that turns your prayer off, and you just have to turn it back on before the next attack. And an orange arrow that will kill me in one hit if I don't move. Because he has such a high mage defense, the fight took me over 6 minutes to finish, and although it's not a hard fight, the cast delay on Ivan's Blast made it quite annoying to move from the orange arrows. At the last minute, Aranwin escapes, and we all head to the underground pass for the final confrontation. In this first fight, you have to stop them doing damage to the barrier for a couple of minutes. And if you kill any of them, they just respawn. So my best strategy is to get the attention of as many of them as possible and then just hide. It's yet another demonstration of my heroism here. Just stood here safely behind a barrier, refusing to get my hands dirty. Our valorous attempt to defend the barricade results in failure, and Lord Iorweth breaks through. Which really begs the question why I had to defend it for a set amount of time, if we were just going to lose anyway. But Lord Iorweth gets through to the Temple of Light, and I am left to defeat Esalt, one of his generals. This fight is by far the easiest. He also has 3 attacks. The first is just a normal melee attack. You pray against it and take no damage. The second, he pushes you back and throws a dart at you. You just swap prayers and take no damage. And thirdly, he throws a vial at you that drains your stats by 5. This doesn't stack and can just be ignored. He's quite weak to magic, so I made quick work of him. And a little fun fact, Esalt used to look like this. Look at that little goofy elf, he looks way better. But I just killed him, so I suppose it doesn't matter what he looks like anymore. And now we finally break through to the Temple of Light, just in time for Lord Iorweth to summon the Fragment of Seren, and for Aranwin to change his mind at the last minute and killed Lord Iorweth with 1 arrow. Let's quickly watch that again. I don't want to just constantly nitpick. The whole point of the rebellion and the elders going into hiding is that they couldn't restore Prif until he was dead. And he's just died with a single arrow? What have these elves been up to for the last few hundred years? But no time to worry about that now. Fragment of Seren is angry and pulls me into her realm for the final battle. This is it, the final challenge. If I can beat her now, then I can finally get into Prif and start my life as an Xtreme Onechunker. But it's not going to be easy. Her basic attack is a ranged attack that hits twice in quick succession, and it cannot be fully mitigated with protection prayers. But protecting from missiles will reduce each hit to a maximum of 3. She does also have a melee attack, but standing next to her will almost certainly mean death at this hit points level. On top of this, she cycles between 4 special attacks. The first, she teleports me next to her, and a few ticks later will melee me. I can just walk away to avoid this damage. The second, she spawns multiple copies of herself, and I need to attack the correct one to despawn the false ones. The third attack, she spawns red crystals that will heal her until I kill them. And finally, the big one, she'll teleport me close and hit me for my maximum hit points -1. There are 3 phases to this fight, and in each phase, the special attacks become more and more deadly. 2 of these special attacks are going to cause me huge problems. If I don't kill the crystals from the third special attack quickly enough, then she will heal too much and I will run out of supplies. So my plan is to bring bronze knives, which have a 2-tick attack speed, so I can kill these extremely quickly. Now, the 4th special attack is one of the reasons I wanted to keep my hit points level so low. The lower my total health, the less damage I take. And I'm hoping, because my health is so low, I will be able to bring enough supplies to survive. Because I have to heal up to almost full each time, it's very important not to overheal and waste my food. Which is why I spent some time trying to farm wild pies from eclectic implings, as they are the best food available to me that you eat in multiple bites. I'm really not too confident about this. I have roughly calculated how long I can survive with the supplies I have, and how long it's going to take for me to kill her. If she didn't heal, I would be sure I can take the win, but I just don't know how much damage I'm going to have to do to kill her. And the fight is going to get harder and harder with each attempt, as with 1,000 hit points and an XP bonus, I'm going to be gaining hit points levels really quickly. Here we go. Let's see if I can do this on the first try. First special coming up here, nothing too challenging. Second special now, and you can see that Rune Light will actually highlight the correct one for me to attack. The third special is very easy at this point. It's only 2 crystals because we're in phase 1. It'll be 4 by the end. And here is where I learned that if you swap your staff in a PvP world, it will forget what you're auto-casting, which is super annoying, but I do need to be on this world for Blighted Manta Rays. And special number 4. Only a small amount of overhealing from food, so a good start. And from here on out, I'll just skip to the good bits. Now, we're in phase 2 here, so the 4th special will do my max hit points -3. I started the fight with 37 hit points, so I can eat to 35 and avoid overhealing. Fuck. I have no idea what happened there. Let's go back and have a look. So it turns out that I leveled up during that fight. So actually, it hit me for exactly 35. So I needed to be at 36 to be safe. And this is why it's so annoying. I would have had to waste at least 10 hit points of food to stay alive here, and I'm not sure how many times I'll be able to do that and not run out of supplies. Time for round 2. And nothing very interesting happened on this attempt. I just didn't do enough damage and had to teleport out with Seren still over 300 hit points. Attempt number 3 was very similar, but we did get her down to 180 health, which is significantly better, but we've still got quite a long way to go if we're going to win this thing. And then came attempt number 4. Every hit was landing. Almost no food was being wasted. And Seren was going down very fast. All the way to 44 health. But the crystals in phase 3 heal so much. And I didn't have the food to survive this last hit. and the fight was over, with her still on 69 health. Nice. Now, this might seem like it's within reach from here, but I have a few problems. I've gained a few hit points levels, so it's getting harder and harder. I've run out of wild pies, and I don't think I can get better RNG than on that last attempt. And just to make sure, I ran it back without the wild pies, and ran out of supplies with 221 health left. I think I gave this method a fair trial, but I don't think any number of tries are going to get me closer than 44 health. I don't think I would have needed that many more things to push this over the edge, but they are things that aren't allowed by my restrictions. Specifically, I can think of two things, which is Guthix Rest and Saradomin and Brew. They both heal in small bites, will overheal, and they don't cause an attack delay, so they would have been really good for this fight. Even at my low level, a Saradomin Brew will heal for 28. But Guthix Rests are locked behind several quests, so that's not possible, and the only reasonable way of getting Saradomin Brews would be to sneak them out of Theatre of Blood. And at the time when I was doing this, I didn't have any subscribers I could beg for a boost. So, let's talk about the other potential methods that I can use to get this done. As mentioned before, mains could do this with brews quite easily, but I just don't have access to them. Next on the list would be to use blood spells, which would work really well for me, but is locked behind so many quests, it's not really worth considering. Redemption is a real consideration, but I'm not sure it will be enough to get me the kill, and there aren't that many good ways of training prayer when I get to Prif, so getting any extra prayer levels feels a bit wrong. And finally, we come to the Phoenix Necklace method. Using Nightshade, I can trigger the effect of the Phoenix Necklace and use it to completely negate the damage from the 4th special attack. This is a very common method for Iron Man to do this fight, as it doesn't punish them for having high hit points, and most Iron Men do this fight before getting access to Saradomin Brews. For this method, I need to get access to diamond necklaces and Nightshade. Luckily, I knew this was a possibility, so I already farmed some Nightshade on my way to level 70. And there are a couple of options on how to get diamond necklaces. The first is to craft them myself with 56 crafting. Second, I can steal valuables in Varlamore. And third is stealing from the ham storerooms. Stealing valuables and the ham storerooms both have exactly the same problems. They're locked behind quests, and the drop rate seems quite low. So I have no idea how long it would take me to get enough necklaces. So who knows how much thieving XP I would get grinding for the necklaces. And I would really much rather get levels than complete quests. If I want to use Phoenix necklaces, I'm going to have to train my crafting to level 55, and from there I can boost to 56. I hope you are not as disappointed as I am that I have to do this, but I can't spend hours and hours farming more wild pies only to continue failing. And I really need to get this done before I go on holiday tomorrow. My best way to justify this over the other methods is that, similar to attack, the crafting level I need for Phoenix necklaces is going to be completely overshadowed by the amount of crafting XP I will get when I get to Prif. I will have a chunk task to get to 82 crafting to make a Blade of Saildor, but I expect that I'll get to at least 90 crafting by the time I'm finished with my first chunk. So call it copium if you want, but this will be less than 5% of the XP I need when I get to Prif. I went for some of the classic Iron Man methods for training crafting. I started off by turning my Stardust into gems and cutting them, and then I headed to charter ships to get the rest of the levels with glass blowing. So, with the 30 most depressing levels on my account acquired, I made the necklaces and geared back up for Seren. This method requires me to keep my hit points in a very specific range, as Phoenix necklaces trigger when you go below 20% health, which for me is 8. So if I keep my health between 9 and 23 and then use a Nightshade, then the Phoenix necklace will trigger and I will become invulnerable for a short amount of time. This time round, I'm also bringing a few baskets of strawberries, so I could do smaller heals when I needed them. The reason I didn't use them before is that each strawberry only heals me for 3, and I would lose a lot of damage due to the attack delay. And things seem to go very smoothly with this new tech. There is even a very easy visual cue, so you know when to click the Nightshade. It's just here, when she crouches down on the floor, ready to spring up and fire the special attack at you. With 2 necklaces down, let's see how many more I'm going to need to finish this. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And my supplies are starting to look really low. If the healing crystals come out again, I don't think I'm going to win this one. So I need a few good hits here. .41's the new PB. And I absolutely just got chance down to 2.
Yes! We did it! We fucking did it!
I've got way worse than Jad hands from that. That's It's such a relief to get that done. This fight took a whole minute longer than my previous best attempt, so I hope that adequately shows just how far away from getting the kill I actually was with the previous method, and I was still starting to get pretty low on resources. And there we go, I've done it. Fragment of Seren defeated, Prifddinas restored, and Song of the Elves complete. Time to start my Onechunk account in Prifddinas. You're going to have to wait for the next episode for any actual Onechunk content. For now, let's look at my final stats, quest completions, and see how well I did on my goals. No unnecessary quests have been started. I only have 22 collection logs, 18 from random events, 3 from agility, and 1 from Herblore seed. And here are my final stats. Total level 1026, with a combat level of 52. It may not be perfect, but I'm very happy with my stats, and this certainly is the lowest total level Song of the Elves completion that I know of. So I guess I have another completely unsubstantiated record to go with my hoop and stick high score. And obviously, if I did this again, I think I could shave off a few levels here and there. I think if anyone else tried to beat this, they would find it quite easy, especially if you removed some of my other restrictions. But I can't think of a good reason why anyone other than me would want to do this. So join me in my next episode for the start of Xtreme Onechunk Iron Man, Prifddinas edition. Thank you to my awesome members, Saria Melody, Diggy Dog SP, Onobo, and Ryan Quarter. You guys are awesome.